Welcome to Hello Port Hueneme. I'm your host Tom Dunn, and today we have a special show. And with us, I have two of the big hitters in the city of Port Hueneme. Chief Andrew Salinas, welcome, Chief.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and Steve Kinney. How are you? Steve is the business coordinator for the city. Is that a good term too?
That'll work.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Tom.
Both of these, the police department and Steve's, the work he does, they had a very good 2018, and we're looking forward to 2019. So I want to talk to them and have them cover what they did in 2018 and what their goals are for 2019. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how Steve is the head of Reach, and they work in a relationship with the police department, and want the people to know how you guys, what you do together, and what's coming up for the coming year.
Sure.
So first of all, I'd like to ask Chief if you could tell us what were the highlights of 2018.
Sure. 2018 was a very busy year for us at the police department. We did a number of things, including we implemented our fireworks host ordinance. We also implemented our DUI cost recovery ordinance, which now brings more revenue into the city. We had done our emergency preparedness guide back in 2017, but what we did differently in 2018 is we converted into Spanish. So now we have a Spanish version of our emergency preparedness guide for all of our residents. As many may have seen entering the police department, we took down that tint on our window, so now you can see who's on the other side. So
Actual people in there.
yes, which has created a much more customer-friendly environment for those visiting our police department. We had a paper shredding event for our residents, which we plan on having again in 2019, closer to tax day. In fact, this year it's scheduled for Saturday, April 27th is our shredding event. We were tasked with regulating our 4 dispensaries that were in existence in 2018, and that kept us rather busy.
The switching over from medical to recreational, did that go okay?
It did. It actually, and boy, did the business really take off for our dispensaries once recreational went live here in the city of Port Hueneme. We expanded our social media outreach and included YouTube as well as Twitter. Many people may have seen our YouTube video involving our police department lip syncing, which was very popular. Our department now deploys naloxone out in the field, which is what we'll call like the antidote to heroin or opioid overdoses. And to date, we have 3 saves, and in deploying this prescription, or I should say drug that saves lives. We created a public service announcements for illegal fireworks in Port Hueneme. We also uploaded our citizens complaint form online that people can get. And then something that we feel that really affects our community is that you can now go online on crimemapping.com and see all the crime that is occurring in your neighborhood or in our community. And it's pretty much live, or updated within the first 24 hours, so you know what's happening in your community in terms of crime, ranging from drunk driving arrests to burglaries to stolen vehicles to robberies. You can look it up, and it's all there. So that's something that the community member can go online and actually do themselves and not have to ask the police department for it.
While you're on that point, you've reiterated it a number of times. I'd like for you to do it again. What's the number one crime issue in Port Hueneme?
People leaving their vehicles unlocked.
Duh.
Theft from vehicle, with over 250 theft from vehicle crimes in the city of Port Hueneme. And we average about 425 crimes a year in this city, and over 250 of them are from people leaving their vehicles unlocked. So if people would just lock their vehicles and take that even one step further and remove your valuables out of your vehicle and lock it, our crime rate would definitely be affected by that.
I told you what I was going to do, which is a couple times a week post that information on Port Hueneme News and Nextdoor. And I had one guy respond. He said, "Well, leaving your car open isn't a crime," because I said that was the number one crime. Well, it is. It's your car. You know, it's a crime. You run right to the police department and somebody stole my car. I mean, well, they have stolen the cars
Right.
too.
Absolutely.
So we plan to make the people aware of what's going on.
Right, and like you said, we even have people that actually leave their vehicles running unattended, and that actually accounted for 3 of our stolen vehicles this past month in 2019. So people still are of the belief that you need to warm up your vehicle, and nowadays with our newer vehicles, that's just not true. So we advise our public not to leave their vehicles running unattended, because not only is that a crime, it's highly likely to get stolen, especially in the early morning hours where our bad guys do know I can walk the streets, look for that tailpipe that's emitting the exhaust, and there's my target, and it only takes just a few seconds.
You might as well put a sign on your windshield, right?
You might as well.
Well, Oxnard and I've also noticed Ventura, they're having the same problems, mainly, at least what we hear, stolen cars. It's become an epidemic.
Absolutely, and so for our first line of defense is actually getting our public to actually lock their vehicles and take their property inside.
All it takes is a click of a button.
Yes, it does.
Amazing. Okay.
And so we also had our Cops for Tots program this year, which was successful, and we served nearly 1,000 children this year, along with National Night Out, and our Explorer program, which only had 5 to 6 youth in it when I first started here. We're now close to 25 youth that are part of this program, so that has taken off. So we did pretty well in 2018.
Yeah, you brought that over from Oxnard when you were in the Oxnard Police Department.
Yes.
You guys had it there. And did we even have that here at Fort Hueneme, or was it very small?
We had the small contingency, but we gave it a little more support, and it's now taken off, and we're right back where we want to be, and that's about 25 to 30 youth in our program.
Very good number.
Yeah.
Okay, and you made this presentation at the last city council meeting. What are your goals and aspirations for the police department for 2019?
So we have a few. To name a few, we want to renovate the city's alarm program, which has not been in existence for the last several years, and that's holding people accountable for the false alarms that are generated here in our city, because our officers respond to over 500 false alarms, and there's no penalty for repeated false alarms at a residence or a commercial business. So we want to re-implement that program to get people to update their alarm systems and actually hold them accountable.
What causes most of those false alarms?
It's actually the individual putting in the wrong code or not knowing the code, or an animal per se. So it's usually operator error.
Operator, okay.
Yeah, about only 1% of our burglary alarm calls are actually real alarm calls.
Okay.
Then we also want to audit our property and evidence room. We're also looking at acquiring new equipment for our police department, such as message board trailers. That's something that we haven't had here, as well as getting some spike strips for our police departments. And those are pursuit intervention devices used to stop vehicles during police pursuits. We're going to be updating our police website and actually having our own police website separate from the city, so we can upload a lot of different material, different links, and really get our community to come to our website to get all the information they need, almost like a one-stop shop. We're going to be updating our emergency operations plan, something I presented at our last meeting. We're going to be adding some personnel to our police department. We're hoping to add 2 community service officers as well as a sworn police officer. And then we also plan on updating our city ordinance as it pertains to our cannabis penalties. And we're going to increase that fine from $1,000 to $10,000 for each violation, which is consistent with what other cities are doing. And that really is hopefully going to hold our dispensaries accountable for any violations.
It gets their attention.
It sure does. And then last but not least is we plan on putting our policy manual online, so our community knows what our policies and procedures are in terms of our police department. And so they can go up there at any time and see why it is that we responded a certain way, or why it is that we do things a certain way.
Okay, thank you very much, and we're going to talk to Steve Kinney now, and after that, we're going to talk about how Steve's REACH program he has and the police department interact. Steve, uh,
Sure.
can you give us a background on REACH, how it started, and what went on this last year, and what you plan to do in 2019?
Sure, be happy to. REACH, we'll start with the basics. REACH is an acronym, and it stands for Recreation, Education, Arts, and Culture in Hueneme, hence REACH. It was the brainchild, actually, of the city council and the city top administration in 2015, when I think people can recall that the city's budget picture was pretty bleak then, as it has been the last few years, and the idea emerged of why not form a sort of companion nonprofit corporation that would ideally be able to tap into some funding sources that the city itself could not get access to, and thereby get some funding available for the kinds of programs that the city general fund could no longer afford to support. And from the name itself, the recreation programs, arts programs, cultural programs, those are typically the first things to go.
And the last things to be.
Yeah. So it was a pretty innovative idea, actually. And got off the ground in 2015, went a little slowly for the first couple of years. There were probably some structural things about it that impeded the mission, and I guess by that mostly I mean it was viewed as and really operated as a quasi-city department. The board of directors was small and composed of all city people, so when you're going to a funding source and trying to make the pitch that we're a private nonprofit corporation, once they look at the constitution of it and all the rest, it looks like the city by any other name. So that really cuts the effectiveness of fundraising. So we tackled that last year in 2018 and restructured the bylaws completely, got the board reconstituted so that it really does now represent the community. The private residents who are on the board, the superintendent of schools for the Hueneme School District is on the board. There's one city council member, so that there's always some sort of connection between the two organizations.
You have a good cross-section of the community where you get not only ideas, different ideas from different parts of the community, but also these individuals have outreach to possible other type of companies or institutions or whatever funds that could donate to the things you want to get done.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's exactly right. One of the criteria we think about when we're trying to identify potential new board members. So we got that all in place last year. I think probably the signature event for REACH in 2018 was our brick sales program, the commemorative bricks, which our residents can see now in their installed form out at the pier at the beach, where there's a small enclosure with the bricks that were sold to community members last year, all installed in permanent locations. It's a nice way for people to be able to remember their loved ones, their family members, honor their pets. I mean, it goes across the board. The end result for REACH was we raised $25,000 for the organization. So that was the benchmark event for us. And that program continues. We still have brick sales ongoing, and we'll have another event like we did last year.
That's right at the foot of the pier, going out off to the left a little bit as you face
Yeah,
the
exactly.
pier, right?
As you're walking to the pier, it's just to the left and very, very well marked, clear location. So that's probably the highlight event in 2018. We participated, maybe anticipating the connection here with the police department, because some of the events that we supported were those that Andrew mentioned and Will mentioned, the Cops for Tots and the National Night Out, were a couple of the programs that we provided some financial support for. I guess I didn't say at the beginning, in essence, our mission is to collect funds from whatever sources we can so that we can put those back into the community programs that are of value to the residents.
And so what are your plans for 2019? Do you have any structural programs that you're looking to work on?
We're going to expand the board this year. I think for all the reasons that you just pointed out as to why having more well-connected board members are beneficial to the organization. So we'll expand the board. We still have some sort of fundamental organizational building blocks to put in place that everybody goes through when you start a new organization. So that's some sort of administrative stuff that we've got to handle. We are going to hold a hopefully fun community event this year around Halloween at the Bard Mansion. An evening dinner and program based around the scarier aspects of Halloween that we hope will be successful enough and fun enough that will become an annual signature event for REACH. We hope to expand our fundraising into the area of the cannabis dispensaries. Again, another issue I think you want to talk about some more. And then I think make the mission of REACH better known throughout the community, because our idea always was that there are no doubt some excellent programs and activities that are run out there in the community that need a little bit of financial help, and we really want to ferret those out and support them as we can, so they contribute to the fabric of community life. And we're still new enough that I think many people don't know the existence of REACH or what our resources are.
One program I've noticed that's coming back this year, which they had in 2017, I don't think they had it last year, is the youth fair. And you're going to be working with that, and that was really impressive. They had 24 different booths of things that the youth could get involved with, ROTC, and there was a cadet thing, and then different types of entertainment and participation groups that they could join, and it was mainly like for an after-school type of thing to help the kids have something to do. Where when all of us were growing up, well, you're a lot younger, so maybe not, but we would just run to the park after school.
He's not that much younger.
We would just run to the park. Or when school was out, our parents would feed us breakfast, send us to the park, come back for lunch, go back, be back by supper.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Right.
and this way, it's a lot tougher in these times to do that. So, having organizations where the kids can go, and two things I noticed when I was taping the show, was that every kid there said, "Thank you, sir," to anything we asked them. And they also said, "I really love going to school now because I get to meet and be with my friends after school." Because a lot of times they go home, there's nothing there, it's boring, they get in trouble. That's when you become involved. And so I look forward to doing that show this year and watching it grow. So glad to hear that Fort Hueneme has an organization that is looking at the things that get short-sighted when we have a financial problem, and it takes time to get it rolling. But I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you. I did want to mention one other item from last year, 2018, that maybe the chief can talk about a little bit more. But it's the Wood Clayson's grant.
Yeah.
Yes, so we found out that the Wood Clayson's grant was accepting applications for canines. And so being that we needed a canine in our police department, we decided to submit an application. But we didn't have a nonprofit to help support us in our efforts in applying for this application. So we reached out to Reach, and they were more than happy to be our sponsor for this application. And just a couple months later, we received $25,000 from the Wood Clasons Foundation in order to purchase a police dog.
Wow. Have you gotten the dog yet?
No, so we don't have enough officers yet on our department. We have 3 vacancies we're trying to fill. So before we purchase that dog, I want to make sure that we get our officers, our staffing up to where it needs to be, and then we will go ahead and purchase that dog.
I just thought of this. Have you thought of a name for the dog?
No, not yet.
How about if we try, I don't know if it'll work, we go on your website and Port Hueneme News and Nextdoor and Hello Port Hueneme and ask people to send in what they would like to have the dog named.
We could do that.
And if
That's
it'll
actually not a bad
publicize
idea,
it,
yeah.
and if you find a name in there you like, you know, you can use it. Or if you just want to go with Fido, you could do that. But I think that would be a fun way to get the community involved,
It sure would.
and we'll look into that. Okay,
I think we'll do that.
very good. Are there any other programs that you guys did in 2018 together and plan to do on 2019, like this one you just mentioned?
Well, I think just the events that you put together that we provided some financial support for.
Grow
You
on
mentioned-
those.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
The other thing you both have in common is working with the new cannabis industry. And you've mentioned, and Chief, in some of your monthly talks to the city council, how the cannabis industry is growing and how I think it's been really a great start, where everything that you were, not that you were suspicious of, but you pre-planned for to make sure if something did happen, you were on top of it. It's gone awfully good. Can you just cover that part a little bit about how it's going and anything that the community should know that maybe they haven't heard between the police department and the cannabis?
Sure, I think what key has been is actually maintaining a good working relationship with all of the dispensary owners and managers from the outset, and really establishing what our guidelines and rules are going to be moving forward, not only what the state requires, but what our city is going to require of them. And they've all been more than happy to comply. So that's been great to have that relationship. And in terms of relationships, community contributions and developing that relationship with them to donate money from their revenue as a percentage of their revenue sales to our community, and that has been working very, very well. As most recently, the purchase of the bunk beds for our regional homeless shelter that's located in Oxnard, that was one of the bigger projects that we had our dispensaries take part in, and they were accountable for over $25,000 of that money that came in to help purchase those beds.
Steve, you've worked with the cannabis industry individually and possibly with Reach and getting funding. How have you perceived what's going on?
Very favorably, in as positive terms as the chief just described. I imagine that the residents are not aware that part of the application process for any of the cannabis licensees, whether they're dispensaries or manufacturers or whatever, is a city mandate that they allocate a portion of their revenues to community contributions. And that's an important part of their application, and they really need to step up in that regard, or else the application is in jeopardy, frankly. So beyond the direct revenues that they contribute to the city on a monthly basis, that's all spelled out, there's this additional component of voluntary contributions to the community. Our experience, and I think the chief will corroborate this, our experience has been that all the people have not been stinting about this at all. They've not been begrudging the city that they've got to come forward with this money or any fashion. They're looking for ways that they can make effective, valuable contributions into one or another programs in the community. It's really been heartwarming, frankly. So the chief and I have been talking with many of them, and we'll talk with all of them sooner or later about institutionalizing that the formula for their contributions to the city, partly so that it's fair for everybody, and partly so that we have a better sense of what that contribution in total is going to be during the course of the year. For REACH, just to finish that, for REACH, for example, we can't really budget out what we're going to spend in 2019 if we don't know how much we're going to have to work with. So it would help us a lot to be able to predict with some certainty the amount of funds that would be available for us. So that's why we're going after this.
Okay, so the cannabis, especially with the adult recreational use of it, has taken off potentially over the medicinal. Can you guys, you have an idea of how much money so far, what it's been, 6, 8 months that they have contributed to the city as a whole?
So the general formula right now, most of them are dedicated to contributing 1% of gross revenue sales to nonprofits or local community organizations. Thus far, that's translated into over $50,000 thus far in donations to the community that we have accepted and applied those to different programs in our community.
Yeah,
that's just in very much the startup mode. I mean, only one of the dispensaries has been in operation for 4 years. So we're talking about that $50,000 coming out of their sort of leanest months of all when they're just getting off the ground. So as they grow, that amount is going to grow as well.
I think we have a bright future, and it's good to see that they're providing money for the aspects of things in the city that normally aren't in the city budget, or they would be if we had plenty of money. But this takes up for that.
Exactly.
Last thing, Chief, I'd like for you to tell the people about the cannabis community meeting that's coming up at the end of the month.
So on Thursday, March 28th, we plan on having a cannabis community educational forum where we'll have a comprehensive presentation on cannabis in Port Hueneme over the last year. So kind of a cannabis in review. How much have we raised over this past year? Where's the money going? How are the cannabis businesses doing in terms of compliance and regulation? Where's the state going? Community contributions, what have they been? How many employees actually come from the city of Port Hueneme? Where do their customers come from? How many customers every day are they getting? And just so on and so forth. So just a real complete and comprehensive summary of what cannabis has been like in our community and what we expect from them over the next year.
Very good. Anything on that, Steve? Are you participating or?
Yeah, I will be a little bit, just because it's a great opportunity with all of the cannabis licensees there and at the same time in one place. I just want to take a few minutes to make sure they're all aware of the full scope of REACH activities and the relationship we want to build with all of them.
Well, it'll be a good opportunity for you to represent REACH and work with a lot of people that may attend that you haven't been in contact with, because I like to say that REACH reaches out to Port Hueneme, and the police department so far. Last thing, have you seen any difference in crime and stuff since cannabis came in? Is it better or worse? No change? Everybody happy?
Oh, well, in terms of violent crime, there has been no real increase in violent crime. In fact, we didn't have any homicides last year, and a limited amount of robberies and rapes as compared to previous years. So in terms of violent crime, there's been no negligible increase at all. Now, property crimes, on the other hand, if I could still just get people to lock their cars, again, we'd see a decrease in crime in the city of Port Hueneme. So
Okay.
nothing that I can really attribute that is come about as a result of us having cannabis.
Well, there
here
were
in
some
Fort Wayne.
naysayers, and I think with the patrols that are in those areas, and with the lighting that a lot of these places have, they have security cameras out there, they have guards. I think it's pretty well covered.
Yes, it is.
Steve, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Tom.
Appreciate it. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll have another program for you next month.